I was mentioning to you earlier how meditation is not entertainment. But when, as a society, we're being led to always look for the next entertaining thing, wherever we go, that's what we will be looking for. Entertainment. I mean, you go up on a plane, traveling, there's like a multimedia there in front of you, a tiny little box, and they try to persuade you to buy some credits, something, swipe your card here, this, that, or sometimes they give it to you for free, let's say, especially if it's a long haul flight. But there's so many things. There's videos, there's movies, there's TV shows, there's comedy, there's music, there's this, there's that. To simply make things enjoyable, or rather entertaining. Meditation isn't that. The reason why we have such a chaotic world and chaotic minds, that's how you end up with a chaotic world, when you have chaotic minds. Leaders of countries, leaders of organizations, leaders of companies, leaders in any human endeavor, religious leaders, academic leaders, you name it. When you look carefully at them, you see how they're all agitated. There's anxiety, there is what you would call a child, or think of a child, or a teenager, even worse. Things are moving, things are shaking, there's a hurricane happening inside this person, and they're basically being run by simple emotions, colorful emotions, extremes of emotionality. The other day we were talking about the pendulum, the extremes of a pendulum's swing. On one end, let's call it the painful experiences, on the other, the pleasurable experiences. Well, those are the two arenas where we allow ourselves to function. There needs to be that, like a football or a soccer match, with two teams. 11 teammates here, 11 over there, and there's a single ball. And if they meet, these two teams, they are out to get each other, outscore each other, fight one another. Ever since I was a child, I would always want the two teams to kind of hug and, make up, just which defeats the whole purpose of the match or the game. I remember I used to watch Lakers and Bulls. I was a fan of basketball. This is like when I was 15, 16, and Chicago Bulls and, LA Lakers. I used to watch it back in Lebanon. We would have the power outage most of the time, so I would go and get my dad's car battery out and bring it upstairs 4 stories high, and then put it there, and then hook it up with these, caliper thingies to this black and white screen TV that he had. And that's how I would watch it on Saturdays, the game. But I would just love it when they would smile to each other. Michael Jordan would smile to, let's say, Magic Johnson and all these characters. Just because it felt so good to see them come together, and there's like no fighting, no like in your face type of, like I'm always going to outdo you. That's another way of looking at the two extremes. Meanwhile, like we were talking about the other day, as far as the neutral is concerned, that's where life mostly is happening, in the neutral arena. Very little bit of your life has to do with the painful and the enjoyable. You're always on a quest to pursue the enjoyable, the fun, the pleasurable experiences, but those are rare. They're more rare than the painful ones if you're living on this planet. But these two are even more rare than the neutral experiences that we go through. Sadly, we are not paying enough attention to the neutral. That's why we look back and we see that where did life go? Because you always highlighted those pivotal moments in your life. Pivotal because they were colorful, they were really loud, they were one of the extremes. Awakening happens because of your paying attention to the neutral. Things that you do, things that you undergo, things that happen are happening. It's a present tense. Right now, when you're sitting or when you're listening to this, let's say you're in a car listening to this, or you're reminded of this while you're sitting somewhere doing work, or you want to scratch your head. All these are neutral. The clothing you're wearing right now, so long as your skin is not burning, you don't have sunburns or you don't have a wound that's, scraping against, even if you're wearing a velvet, it's going to be very painful. But what if you don't have those situations happening to you? The skin is normal, the clothing is normal, you're not wearing a burlap sack or something, it's not scratching you. Where's the mind? It's definitely not there. It's dozing off or gone off to la-la land of ideas, or there's a painful experience somewhere else in the body, that's where it is, or dreaming about the future or the past. The neutral is being completely nullified, ignored. But through the neutral, think of it as a blank page. You can easily spot a single letter, tiny little letter, that even if it's written in or typed in size 6 font or 5, 4, whatever, you could still see it if it's the only thing on the blank piece of paper. And that is what we're doing in meditation. We're pulling away from the two extremes, painful and the pleasurable. We are bringing things down to the neutral. We are inviting the attention back to be placed upon the neutral. That's why Lord Buddha gave us something as simple as the breath meditation. It's very neutral. But if you happen to be one of the many, the majority that is always seeking some entertainment, even the painful is entertaining, because now you're engaged to get rid of it. Just like this team on this side was not that animated, that agitated, that angry when they were just playing, ball and they were just shooting hoops, without the opponents being there on the court with them. But the moment the other team shows up, all of a sudden it's heightened awareness. You're always looking at the time clock, a scorecard, this is a scoreboard. You're always, what happened? Now you're caught in the drama of things. Meditation is pulling you out of the drama of things, bringing you to what many people wrongly claim or address as, it's too bland. For this reason, many people start looking elsewhere. Even within the tradition itself, the noble tradition itself, they start looking away from meditation and they look for something a little bit more interesting, such as, centuries ago it was the Abhidhamma. They came up with the Abhidhamma and they squeezed, not just centuries by the way, it's almost 2,000 years, more than 2,000 years, 2,300 almost. They came up with, during King Ashoka's time, they codified it. They made the Abhidhamma with its very complicated analyses, formulas, breakdowns of mental states, this, that, which you don't find much evidence of in the suttas. Definitely it was not part of the first council. That's why we didn't have Tipitaka. In the first and second councils, we didn't have them. Third council, 3rd century, that's when we had them. Because people had become lazy. They were getting too excited or wanting to get excited because it was very entertaining to engage in philosophical debates. Having a philosophical, because what that means, you have a position. And now you're going to protect that position against someone else's position. Well, that's definitely not going to be bland now, is it? Because emotions are now involved. And it gives you the impression, it gives you the deluded impression, that is, that you are somehow practicing or working towards the sasana. Sasanas, or the Lord Buddha's dispensation, for the welfare of the Dhamma, to promote or preserve the Dhamma. Nothing could be further from the truth. There are people today in the world, and the Western meditator types, practitioners, they were highly influenced by the Asian practitioners before them, prior to them, where there is this academic slant, top-heavy approach in pursuing the intellectual aspect of the Dhamma. Reading, researching, analysis, pseudo-translations of the Pali Canon. There's no practice though. But people are believing themselves to be actually promoters of the Dhamma while they're wasting away their life. I met a character last year somewhere in Asia, and he was trying to do his best to say, to convince me of what was obviously not the case. That he was dedicating his life to promote the Dhamma by writing something on the Dhamma. And I asked him, what happened to your practice? Well, he says, no, I know, Bhante, I know I'm not practicing, but I have realized that my calling is the scholarly work. And I said, where does that fall into the Buddha's teachings? There is no scholarly. Yes, I know, but Bhante, you are one of those teachers that is very staunchly against, academics. And I said, well, hold on. I used to be an academician. I have a PhD in Buddhist studies. I have a doctorate in it. And I've studied this for as long as I can remember. So it's not like I'm a foreigner to academia. I used to be an educator both in all areas of education, including all the way down to elementary, primary schools, all the way to university level. So I'm not a complete stranger as to the amount of work that it entails and how important it is. So I'm not staunchly against it. But what is this path all about? You learning or writing an outstanding, let's say, dissertation on the Dhamma, on a segment of the Dhamma, on a statement made by Lord Buddha, let's say, can never be equal to a moment of sati. Check out the Dhammapada. Lord Buddha has countless places, and he says how a day spent mindfully is worth more than 100 years living without sati. And most of the time scholars aren't even living life. So it's diluted. But that is also entertainment. That's what I'm trying to say. So in Buddhist history, the pursuit of scholarly endeavors, that itself was entertainment for those types of monks. So they created this division, the scholarly monk and the meditative monk. And then eventually there was the Vinaya practicing monk. All nonsensical divisions that human beings have made to their own detriment, first and foremost, before they did damage to the Dhamma, or are continuously doing so. So, for such individuals, basically that's what I'm trying to say, is that the practice of meditation is too bland, it's too neutral, it's too colorless. And it definitely doesn't give you enough material to go ahead and sit down with others and compare notes, to show off your stripes, your abilities, how many articles you have written on the subject, who is talking about you on what podcast, how many publications you have. All these are nonsensical when it is the urgency that we need to be addressing. The urgency of the person who's writing these, urgency of life passing through his fingers. And why do I say this? I say this because many have fallen away from the proper practice of meditation because it simply wasn't doing it for them. They were in it for the wrong reasons, basically. That's why people start with, yes, sila, yes. Sometimes they're intrigued by the color of the robes of the monk, the way the monk is speaking, what kind of audience the monk has, etc. Or what they've been inspired by, something they wrote, something they said. But that cannot go on for too long. They have to fall back on something that's more tangible and more personal. And if the person is in, you're part of society after all. You're part of the crowd that's there scouring the channels on the plane looking for an interesting movie to watch while you're supposed to be resting. 33,000 feet up in the air. Such meditators are still part of society, of course. So, but they don't leave that, monkey jumping from branch to branch mentality out. They bring it along with them. And, unfortunately, they don't go far. So now they're looking for ways to experience that, but within the context of Dhamma, within the context of Buddhism. So they start looking for jhanas, something that is really bombastic, really loud, really colorful, really outstanding, so that they can write home about. They can tell people about. They can write books about. They can have following. They can start teaching. Ooh. That'll keep things entertaining. That is, for a while, until even being a teacher is not going to cut it for you because your life is empty. You're thriving off of the students that you get here and there, the attention you get here and there, the books you write, people talking about you, so you engage in conversations with them, go on forums, debate. That'll keep things juicy and entertaining. These are things that are happening. I'm not making any of this stuff up. I have seen this. I know these people by name. They used to be fellow practitioners, some of them, over the course of the past decades. I've seen them fall away, even getting into things like drugs. These are teachers of jhanas. People who claim them as their teachers, they've written books on Dhamma. They can show you the way to Nibbana type of teachers. Now they sit there and they talk about, the incredible things about psychedelics. What? That tells you how they've gone off the reservation, how far they've gone off the reservation into the desolate wilderness of their delusion, which has nothing to do with the Dhamma. All this comes, as you saw, from the unbearable neutral. Unbearable for whom? These characters. They need a sounding board. They need an echo to hit them back. But a true practitioner is fine where they are. They don't look for companionship. Ajahn Mun was fine. It was very painful for him to come back to society because he would get invitations by this major abbot who has been supportive of him every time he came to, let's say, Bangkok or to Chiang Mai. Same thing with Webu Sayadaw. He was fine in his metal kuti a few feet off the ground with tons and tons of mosquitoes inside, not outside. And he didn't walk around, he didn't go like other bhikkhus exploring different parts of Burma on foot, because that'll also keep you active, you know. That's very entertaining. You have a lot of fat monks walking around on what they call basically going around. It's one of the tangas. You just walk, you just go. It's, you know, traveling. Heavy set, fat monks walking around with their cell phones, sending pictures and videos on social media that, hey, we are walking with this tons of container-sized backpacks. I don't know what you're carrying in them, because they were not part of the requisites. They are not part of the requisites. Definitely the cell phone isn't. Plus you have lay people helping you. The city gets announced, the TV stations know all about you before you get there. Wow, we're talking about celebrity status. Ajahn Mun didn't have any of those things. People were afraid to go behind him, walk behind him, because he would go through some dense jungles alone, and he was fine. He wasn't looking for entertainment. Bhante Katukurunde Jnanananda, who was among these three, he was the recent most teacher who died. We lost another arahant. He taught it was so intensely, but by providing us such a huge library of Dhamma, such condensed but such a huge library. But he wasn't going around, even in Sri Lanka. He wasn't even welcome. So he had his small kuti. Finally, he ended up in a small kuti. Somebody found him a place, and lay people were more supportive. Imagine that. And he didn't have that many of them. He didn't have that many students. Most of the people that know about him today, nearly 7-8 years after his death, know about him after his death, posthumously. So what I'm trying to say is, these teachers did not care about becoming, entertaining. That's not, and definitely they didn't encourage that in their students. Because the Dhamma is a path, a solitary path. Some people call it lonely path. Well, it doesn't have to be, because when you say lonely, you're also insinuating that it is somewhat depressing or downer type. No, it's the exact opposite. But if you're looking, if you are like that tiny little child who's looking into the, through the window pane, squeezing your nose into the window pane, looking inside of this bakery that sells all these sweets and all that, cookies, and you're drooling, but you're not going in. versus someone who does go in and taste. That is the distinction that I'm trying to make between someone who's looking for the entertainment factor in the Dhamma and someone who is really going in and jumping head first, diving in head first. To really go beyond that sound barrier, if you will, of the mundane looking, the bland looking, the neutral, because that's where the Dhamma will really reveal itself to you, in the sense that how much you're putting in. That is what we're talking about. How much are you putting into your practice? If you are looking for entertainment aspects of the Dhamma, to be entertained basically through even your meditation, create that friction in your mind, even while you're practicing precepts or sila, to keep a virtuous life, that's it then. You're going surface level. You're not going deep. Your lungs are too full of air and you're trying to dive down to go after pearls deep on the floor of the ocean. No, you need to empty out those lungs. Otherwise they will keep you afloat, buoyant. You're not going to go deep beyond a meter. You can't even go beyond 3 feet. Why? Because your lungs are full of it. So you need to empty out what you're full of and make yourself available for the Dhamma in spite of your opinions about the Dhamma, your quest on looking for some entertainment in the Dhamma. Some people go after the rites and ritual aspects. You see this all the time. You see this especially in Westerners who go and adopt Buddhism, and they just changed outfits. They used to be Christian or Jewish, and now they've gone and become Buddhist. Okay, what has changed? Well, the rites and rituals are different. Chantings and mantras and this and that, or even in Tibet, in Theravada Buddhist traditions in the West, or Westerners who practice Theravada. The bowing, this, that, the lighting of this candle, the this, and are we saying the right chant tonight? Are we on the right page? Where does that fall into the grand Dhamma? Your understanding of the Dhamma. You cannot avoid meditation. It's impossible to avoid meditation. I've met monks, I've met monastics in all traditions, and I've met followers, lay people, in all of these traditions I mentioned, who turned to me and they said, no, we don't emphasize meditation as much. And I said, I'm sorry. One of them, Theravada by the way, from Burma, said, no, I don't practice. My teacher is fine with that. He doesn't even practice as much, but he does love to do good deeds. And I said, what? He loves to do good deeds. And I said, what's the difference between anyone else, any other tradition out there that does good deeds? People were doing good deeds in the Dark Ages when there was no Dhamma. Dark Ages of the planet, that is. Not the medieval Dark Ages or prior to those after Roman Empire fell. No. You can do good deeds anytime. But you're not going to break through samsara. You're definitely not going to be awakened. You're just going to gain yourself some merits and then back to wagging your tail because, oops, you're now a pig again, or a cow again, or a horse being eaten alive by those nasty flies biting. Yeah, you did good deeds, but you could have actually broke free. And you're not going to break free by simply studying the suttas alone, doing the commentaries alone. Actually, you don't need the commentaries. Just go with the suttas. But you need to put it into practice, apply it with meditation. It's unavoidable. You have to do it because that is, why would you avoid it anyhow? That's the ladder that's going to really take you to places in your mind to see and to encounter yourself, to see the hang-ups, to see what loopholes you've built for yourself to keep yourself in the darkness of delusion. No book is going to give you that. No Abhidhamma is going to give you that. No good deed is going to give you that. Impossible. That's why Lord Buddha instituted the 3 trainings. Sila, Samadhi, that is all about meditation. Samadhi, mental cultivation. Sila is keeping a virtuous life behaviorally, not by going through the rites and rituals aspect of it, or to look pure to other people. That's not Sila. Or to impress others that, see, did you see that? I didn't lie. I could have lied, but why I'm bringing this up to you so that my teacher could actually see that I am practicing Sila. Meanwhile, you're not practicing Sila at all. You're just showing off. Plain and simple. Sila, Samadhi, these 2 will bring you to Panya. Because when you combine these 2 with the understanding that is there, looking at you in the suttas, in the discourses provided to you, in the teachings of Lord Buddha, you're constantly doing comparing contrast with yourself, with life, with what you've learned so far, and what you're discovering in your meditation. So it's not bland at all. You're constantly discovering newer and newer layers of the onion, of yourself. That's how you're breaking free from your old ways of doing things, thanks to the insight, which is why we call it panya. That's wisdom. And that is not somebody giving you that wisdom, a bucket full of wisdom you get from your teacher. No. Your teacher simply is guiding the way, showing you no. Sometimes slapping you in the back of the hand is stop. No, you stop it. Go this way. If you don't like it, you'll just leave and go somewhere else, back to the colorful Disneyland of entertainment. Otherwise, if it's really, truly there in you, the desire to know, understand, you will maintain those 3 trainings, no matter what. Come rain or shine, as they say. And you will go deep. And you yourself will understand the Dhamma. That's the only way that you can gain understanding, by the way. True understanding. But you cannot get a shortcut while you're pursuing passions and desires over there, and you're doing your meditation over here. No, I'm going to find my own path. You have a lot of those characters. No, I can balance the 2. I can do both. Yeah. See, I'll be able to do it. Really? So you're inventing a new Dhamma. You're making your own path. Wow. The audacity. The stupidity, rather. So, but that's the life that the person is willing to live, because their hair is not yet on fire, or at least they're not aware. It is on fire, let me correct myself. But they're not aware of it because they're too mesmerized by what's going on around them. Oh, look at the kitty. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at this. If you've ever been to Disneyland, there's always some attraction, something that's trying to pull. Everything is fake, by the way. Everything is glued. Every single thing. I've tested it. I've gone even to that submarine ride that they have. Fake submarine in the fake pool. In fact, it's attached to actual metal bars that descend, like an elevator that descends. And then you're looking around, it's like murky water, and you look, and it's like, is that an octopus? Is that a snail? Is that a clam? Is that a thing that's attached? Is that a barnacle on the wall? And you look, and it's like, wow, it is at least one thing is, wait a minute. Oh, it's not a real. Oh, it's glued. And it's a bad one. It's a bad model as well. But people are there. You see them from the other window taking snapshots, pictures, selfies with all this fakeness, all seeking it to be entertained, even though they had waited about 2.5 hours in line under the heat of Southern California sun in the summer to get in. That's how stupid people can be, and are in many cases, because some of them actually have year passes for the whole family. That's like close to $10,000, if not more nowadays, to go into fake land. And if you can't find a fake land outside of you, people will not hesitate to make a fake land inside of them, inside their world. Even in taking the Dhamma and really creating a bastardized version of it in their mind. They're only sullying their mind. They can't touch the Dhamma. The Dhamma is pure through and through. The Dhamma is, if there's anything eternal, that's it. It's just people's ignorance that hide it from vision. And that's why we fall back into the dark ages where the Dhamma is no more. And that's where we are headed every day. We're getting closer and closer to the complete wipeout of the teachings of Lord Buddha. And most of it is happening from the inside out. That means from Buddhists misinterpreting, misrepresenting the Dhamma. You have one character, I think she's a Zen nun or something in Brazil. Elderly woman, and apparently very outspoken, but I found out through this thing that she created, this havoc or this big noise in Brazil, where she was hired to do a commercial for a beer company, alcoholic beer company, as a representative of the Buddhist path. Even though it's Zen, I don't consider it, having to do with teachings, historical teachings of Lord Buddha, but later edition, that's what it is. But this character goes around carrying herself as, she doesn't even have a Buddhist name, but she carries herself as an authority figure in Buddhism, in that part of the world, plus misrepresents the Dhamma. Imagine the evil that this person is promoting. What if you don't know anything about Buddhism? You can't tell the wheat from the chaff, and you come across a character like this. People were not Buddhists, they were criticizing her. Not being Buddhist says, how could you be a religious teacher and do an advertisement? In the Catholic Church, in Orthodox Church, in similar denominations, they have the Mass and the sacrament where they would do the wine, let's say, on the altar in the Mass, during Mass. I come from a Christian background. We used to do that. I was a altar boy at some point as a child, and even later on as a deacon in the church. So yeah, you're there and it's actual wine, but I've never seen for the life of me any priest, Catholic or otherwise, doing a commercial for a wine company. These people are shameless to wear any kind of Buddhist robe, whether it's a Zen type of a thing that they're wearing, or other traditions, even a Bhikkhu's robes, to misrepresent the Buddha and his teachings. So that's why I say the Dhamma is fading out fast. So whatever you're going to do, you better do it quick to address the fire that's blazing on your head. You can't go out fixing the world. That's impossible. Forget it. Forget it. You can only start and finish with yourself. Fixing, addressing your wounds, personal wounds. And as you're doing that, the world around you will be impacted in the most beautiful, positive way. Trust me. No, don't trust me. I mean, you see the Dhamma. through the ages, especially during life Buddha's time, earlier days. The examples, of so many examples. The person works on themselves and their families start to improve, their relationships. But when there is no practice, this is what happens in the world. When there is no virtue, this is what happens in the world. When there's no virtue in the family falls apart. When there's no virtue in the community falls apart. When there's no virtue in the country falls apart. And that's what we're seeing in the world. Everywhere you look. Virtue is disappearing. And when there's no virtue, it's impossible for the Dhamma to still be around. So the Dhamma being, wiped out is not a Buddhist problem. Everyone should be concerned about that, because the pure teachings of Lord Buddha, when they disappear, it's terrible. And we're seeing evidence of that. But they don't happen all of a sudden. They happen incrementally, but that incrementally process is quite exponential from day to day. So there's a lot of evil happening. Evil. And it is within each of us in our approach towards the Dhamma, in our own practice. Don't look for evil outside of you. It's there, of course, but what really matters is what you're doing with the opportunities you're getting to choose the thing that is opposite of evil, the thing that is skillful for you to choose. The Dhamma versus the Adhamma. So calling yourself a Buddhist is not a cover, is not a shelter, is not security, is not going to protect you. When you're leaving your heart wide open to non-virtue. So all this noise you will be able to deal with rather smoothly and quickly if you're able to simply practice those three. Sila, maintaining your precepts, keeping a virtuous life. Initially it might be hard, because it's easier to break things, to destroy things, to harm, than it is to heal, to build, to beautify something. That is hard, that takes work. Similarly, you are purifying your mind, your heart. And that's why we practice Sila. Similarly, when it comes to the mind, you can always have an evil thought and you can follow it through with action. That's always easy. You can go and slap someone on the street. You just created a war. You just created your life might actually turn and never be regained again. You might end up in jail, killed, etc., destroy lives by that stupid action. But remember how easy it was. But to go ahead and create a bond of camaraderie, friendship, brotherhood with your neighbor, that takes effort. But that will last long. And the benefits, the fruits of such wonderful, sweet fruits of that will be long-lasting for many generations to come. So which one's better? The thing that came easy, which was leading humanity to destruction, which is what we see now, or the thing that builds relationships of love, harmony, respect for one another? That's what the Dhamma gives you. All because you start with Sila, Samadhi, because you're practicing and you're not turning away from that experience of quiet neutrality in the mind, as long as you have Sati. And then because of these two, all of a sudden the purity blossoms into understanding, which we call Panya, wisdom. Insight after insight takes place. So I wish that upon all of us. Sukhiyot.